All right, let me take you back to where it all began. I'm Thomas, by the way. Average guy, average life. Or at least that's what I thought. Life's funny like that, isn't it? One minute you're cruising, thinking you've got it all figured out, and the next, you're in the middle of a story you only hear about in scandalous TV dramas. It all started with these tiny, nagging details. My wife, Julie, she started coming home late. More often than not, her reasons were as thin work's crazy, or traffic was a nightmare. You know, the usual stuff. But something didn't quite add up. It was like a bad song stuck on repeat. Then, one evening, she walked in with this scent clinging to her. A man's cologne, definitely not mine. That hit me like a ton of bricks. My gut twisted into knots. I remember staring into the mirror, asking myself, is she seeing someone else? So, there I was, turning into some amateur sleuth. I'd rummaged through her stuff when she was in the shower, checking her phone for any clue. I felt like a character in some cheap detective novel, but I couldn't help it. The need to know was eating me up inside. One night, I couldn't take the suspense anymore. We were having dinner, the same old silent meal, and I just blurted out, "Are you cheating on me?" Man, the look on her face, it was this mix of surprise and something dark, like she was caught, but also a bit thrilled about it. She laughed, yeah, she actually laughed. It was this cold, hollow sound that seemed to echo around the room. Then she said, "Yes, I am." Just like that. No tears, no drama. But what came next was the real kicker. She wanted me to watch. Said it would spice things up. I felt like I'd been thrown into some twisted reality show. You're probably thinking, walk away, man. But it's not that easy. There was this part of me that needed to understand the why, the how. So, I agreed. Against all logic, against every screaming instinct, I agreed. The day came, and there I was, hidden away, feeling like a total creep. My heart was pounding out of my chest, anger and hurt swirling in a toxic mix. Watching Julie with this other guy, it was surreal. Each touch, each laugh they shared, was a stab right in the gut. But you know what? It also opened my eyes. I saw Julie, not as my wife, but as someone I no longer recognized. Someone who could lie straight to my face, who could twist love into some sick game. And that's when I knew I had to get out, had to turn this whole nightmare on its head. But I wasn't going to leave quietly. No way. I was going to expose the truth. Let the world see Julie for who she really was. I started gathering evidence, taking photos, recording conversations. I was a man on a mission, fueled by a mix of heartbreak and this burning desire for justice. I chose our annual dinner party with friends to drop the bomb. I had everything planned out. I'd stand up, glass in hand, and lay it all out. Photos, recordings, the whole 9 yards. I was going to shatter that saintly image Julie had been parading around. And let me tell you, when that moment came, it was like a scene straight out of a movie. The shock, the whispers, Julie's face turning white as a sheet. It was all there. I watched as her world crumbled around her, piece by piece. After that, everything changed. Julie lost her friends, her reputation. Me, I started a new chapter. Sure, the pain was still there, but I had something back, my dignity, my self-respect. A while later, Julie called me, crying, saying she regretted everything. But it was too late. I had moved on, grown stronger from the whole mess. I hung up, looked out the window, and there it was, a clear sky after a storm. I had survived, ready to face whatever came next. You know, there's always that one moment, that split second when everything you've ever believed in comes crashing down around you. For me, that moment was the night I confronted Julie. It was like stepping onto a stage, not knowing if you're about to play the hero or the fool. We were in our living room, the same room where we'd celebrated anniversaries and birthdays. It's funny how a place filled with so many happy memories can suddenly feel like a trap. I remember the way my heart pounded as I looked at her, this woman I thought I knew, and asked the million-dollar question, "Are you cheating on me?" Her reaction? She laughed. Not the kind of laugh that comes from joy or a funny slip-up. No, this was different. It was a laugh that sent shivers down my spine, a sound that seemed to mock everything we had built together. And then, as if her laughter wasn't enough to shatter my world, she admitted it. Just like that, "Yes, Thomas, I am. But here's where it gets really twisted. She didn't just stop at admitting her affair. She wanted me, yes, me, her husband, to watch her with this other guy. It was like a sick, twisted game to her. It'll spice things up, she said. I mean, what the hell, right? You're probably thinking I should have walked out right then and there. And you're right, any sane person would have. But there was this part of me, this masochistic, bewildered part, that needed to know more. Why? How do we get here? So, in a decision that defies all logic, I agreed. The following days were a blur. I was living in this daze, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. Part of me hoped it was all a bad dream, that I'd wake up and find everything normal again. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. Then came the night I had agreed to become a spectator in my own marriage's destruction. I remember hiding in our guest room, feeling like the world's biggest loser. There's something profoundly disturbing about hearing your spouse with someone else, only a few feet away. It was a sensory overload of the worst kind. The sounds, the silences, the muffled laughter. That night, I didn't just see Julie's true colors. I saw my own naivety, my own willingness to turn a blind eye to the signs. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, horrific, but you can't look away. But, amidst that chaos, something in me snapped. It was this moment of crystal clear clarity. I realized that this wasn't the end for me. No, it was a wake-up call. I was more than this, more than a pawn in Julie's sick game. I started planning right then and there, in the darkness of that guest room. I was going to expose her. Let everyone see the kind of person she really was. I wasn't going to be the silent, suffering husband anymore. I was going to take back control of my story. Over the next few days, I became a man on a mission. I gathered evidence, photos, videos, anything that could prove what was happening. It was like I was building an arsenal, preparing for the final showdown. I had to be methodical, careful not to tick Julie off about what I was planning. Every step had to be precise, calculated. And through it all, I was wrestling with my own demons. There were moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I was doing the right thing. But then I'd remember that night, the laughter, the betrayal, and I'd steel myself again. This was about more than just revenge. This was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-respect. As the day of the big reveal approached, I felt this mix of anxiety and determination. I knew things were going to get ugly, that the fallout would be massive. But I also knew that I couldn't live in the shadows of lies and deceit any longer. I was ready to bring everything into the light, ready to face whatever came next. That's the thing about truth. It's liberating and terrifying all at the same time. And I was about to find out just how much of both it could be. So, there I was, hidden like some kind of spy in my own house. It's a strange thing, to be a fly on the wall in your own life, watching it fall apart. My heart was racing, a mix of cold fury and disbelief. I mean, how did it come to this? Me, Thomas, the guy who always played it safe, now lurking in shadows like a character in some twisted thriller. It was the most humiliating experience of my life. Hands down, there I was, crouched in the darkness of our spare room, every fiber of my being screaming to burst out and stop this madness. But I didn't. I just watched, trapped by my own choice, a silent witness to my wife's betrayal. Julie and this guy, they were there, in our living room, our sanctuary. They laughed, they touched, they shared glances. Every one of those moments was like a knife twisting in my gut. I could feel the life we had built together crumbling around me, piece by piece. But you know what? Amidst all that pain and anger, something else was happening to me. It was like I was seeing Julie for the first time, not as my wife, but as a stranger filled with lies and deceit. All those years, all those memories, they seemed to fade into the background, overshadowed by the reality of who she had become. I remember thinking, who was this woman? She wasn't the Julie I thought I knew. This Julie was cold, calculating, playing this sick game without a care for the wreckage she was leaving behind. It was like watching a mask fall off, revealing a face I had never really known. The realization hit me hard. I had been living a lie, a comfortable, convenient lie. As I watched them, a part of me was dissecting every interaction, every laugh, every touch. I was trying to understand, to find some kind of reason behind this madness. Was it something I did? Was it something I didn't do? But the more I watched, the more I understood that this wasn't about me. This was about Julie and the choices she had made. There's something profoundly sobering about seeing someone you love as the person they truly are, not the person you believe them to be. It's like waking up from a dream, only to find yourself in a nightmare. But in a strange way, it was also a wake-up call. I realized I couldn't be the victim in my own story. I couldn't let this define me. As the night wore on, my initial shock and hurt began to morph into something else, a resolve. I wasn't going to let this break me. I was going to come out of this stronger, smarter. I started planning my next moves. It wasn't just about exposing Julie anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity. I continued to watch, to observe. Every detail was etched into my memory, not out of a desire to remember, but as fuel for my resolve. It was like gathering ammunition for the upcoming battle. I knew that the road ahead would be tough, that what I was planning would turn our lives upside down. But I also knew that there was no going back to the way things were. That life, that version of me, was gone. As I quietly made my way back to my room that night, a sense of clarity settled over me. It was a clarity born from pain and betrayal, but clarity nonetheless. I knew what I had to do, and I was ready to do it. Looking back, that night was a turning point for me. It was the night I stopped being a passive observer in my own life and started taking control. It was the night I began the journey of finding out who I really was, away from the shadows of a love that had turned into a lie. You know, there's a point in every person's life when they realize enough is enough. For me, that realization came crashing down like a ton of bricks after that night of playing the reluctant voyeur in my own marriage. I couldn't live in that farce anymore, not for a second longer. It was time for a revolt, time to take back the reins of my life. So, I started planning my exit. It wasn't just about walking away, it was about exposing the truth, about making sure Julie couldn't just sweet-talk her way out of this one. I turned into this guy with a mission, a purpose. I was done being the clueless husband. It was time to be the director of my own life's movie. I started gathering evidence like a pro. I had photos, recordings, you name it. Every piece was a part of this grotesque puzzle that had become my life. It felt surreal, going through our shared life and picking out the lies and the deceit. Each photo I took, each recording I made, was a step towards freeing myself from this web of betrayal. I'd be lying if I said it was easy. It was gut-wrenching. Each piece of evidence was a reminder of how far we had fallen, of how much I had lost. But it was necessary. I needed to see the full picture, to understand the extent of Julie's betrayal. It was the only way I could move forward. It wasn't just about the physical evidence, though. I started noting down times, dates, inconsistencies in her stories. I became this human lie detector, analyzing every word, every gesture. It was exhausting, living in a constant state of alertness, but it was also empowering. I was no longer the guy who got played. I was the guy who was fighting back. As I compiled all this evidence, I started feeling this mix of anger and relief. Angry because of all the lies, the deceit, the sheer audacity of it all, but relieved because I was finally seeing things as they were, not as I wanted them to be. It was like I was slowly shedding this skin of naivety and stepping into a new, more resilient self. I also had to think about the aftermath. Exposing Julie wasn't going to just be a mic drop moment. It was going to have repercussions. Our friends, our families, everyone would be affected by this. But I couldn't let that stop me. I had to stand up for the truth, for my own sanity. I remember the night before I decided to reveal everything. I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head, playing out different scenarios. Part of me was scared of what was to come, but a bigger part of me was resolute. I had come too far to back down now. The next day, I felt this strange calmness as I prepared for the confrontation. It was like I was in the eye of the storm, the chaos swirling around me, but inside, I was at peace. I knew what I had to do, and I was ready to do it. I chose a dinner party at our friend's place for the big reveal. It had to be public, irrefutable. Julie wouldn't be able to twist the narrative in front of an audience. I had all the evidence on my phone, ready to be shown. I wasn't just going to tell them, I was going to show them. As we got ready for the party, Julie was her usual self, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. I played along, keeping my cards close to my chest. It was a game of poker, and I was about to play my winning hand. Walking into that party, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I greeted our friends, made small talk, all the while knowing that in a few moments, everything was going to change. It was surreal, like being in a movie where you know a plot twist is about to happen. And then, as we sat down for dinner, with everyone gathered around, I stood up. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. I have something to share, I said. And with that, I began the most difficult, the most liberating speech of my life. So there I was, at this dinner with our closest friends, the kind of gathering where you'd usually share good news, maybe a promotion or a new baby on the way. But me? I was about to drop a bombshell that would turn this cozy little get-together into a scene straight out of a daytime drama. The air was filled with the usual chatter and laughter, the clinking of glasses, the kind of comfortable noise that comes with good company and too much wine. Julie was there, of course, playing her part to perfection, the doting wife, all smiles and grace. It was almost enough to make me doubt myself. Almost. I remember feeling like I was in some sort of trance as dinner progressed. Each course that came and went was like a ticking clock, counting down to the moment of truth. My stomach was in knots, but there was also this growing sense of determination. I wasn't just doing this for me, I was doing it for the sake of truth, for reality over pretense.